Alright. Welcome back to More Than Peachy's Gaming. I'm your host, Mune. And today we're going to be covering an awesome dungeon, one that was previously covered, but not the master version of it. So we're going to be doing Master Grey Wolf Den. The requirements are an item level of 2000, a tank, a healer, and 3 DPS. Though if you private queue, you can ignore that group requirement. But you still have to meet the required item level. Alright? It is a little bit different. I mentioned in the previous video that there are changes that are imperative in that video for the master version. But we will go over them as we come across them in the dungeon. It will flow very much a lot easier. One of the big things is that we will be having to deal with some additional mechanics during the boss battle, the final boss battle. The enemies will hit harder. They will hit quicker. There will be some instances where enemies don't line up to where they specifically were in the regular version, but aside from that, it's pretty much the same. Okay, some levers aren't in place, and walls and barriers are gone, so that way you can just get quicker into that action. And unlike the other version, I'm going to be using the shortcuts in this version. Whatever possible, because shortcuts are awesome. I will try to avoid some enemies if I can, though some of my counterparts might not necessarily like it, because having to deal with less enemies is always better. Alright, so I'm dealing with the usual party setup, a tank, a healer, and 3 DPS. I think we will be perfectly fine. I'm going to go ahead and flip this coin while I'm waiting here. Alright, so you will notice that some of the DPS are moving quite a bit faster than me, because they do have that sprint ability, and some of them are more well built to act like tanks if they really need to. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and beat this guy up. Alright, so I am going to just hop across. I really didn't want to mess around with waiting for the bridge, and that was a little bit faster. So, go ahead and take that. Alright, so you get more enemies up here, as usual. Just like last time. You will notice I am dealing significantly less damage, because, well, master version. Alright. I think that's pretty much them all. There's a treasure chest. I don't really care about it. And moving straight into where the boss is. And as I said earlier, no lever to open said boss. So, a little bit harder to hit bosses when they're surrounded. So, looks like he might have dropped an item of some kind. Enlightened Insignia of Courage. I'll just hit need on that. If I get it, I'll probably just donate it to the coffer. There are a few ads around, but looks like they took care of them all. Awesome. Not much new to say about this dungeon, other than the shortcuts that I typically use. Lots of open areas without enemies. Again, you can use the shortcuts if you want. I can just simply walk by. You don't have to be too particular on how you do this, just make sure that you do it. This area is a little bit trickier. I don't think you can actually just walk around it, so might as well take it for what it's got. Alright, moving along. Some key parts that are changed. I bet you noticed that there's not a wall there anymore and no lever. That is where the second boss resides. The dungeon's actually fairly quick. Every time I play this, friends are always saying, oh yeah, it only takes about 10-15 minutes, if that, and I'm over here, it's like, oh, that's so long. It's because the dungeons feel longer than what they actually are sometimes. So I think Valindra's Tower is really short, even though it takes roughly about the same amount of time. And the enemy dropped an Elemental Alliance ward belt. So you can get purple gear from these bosses from time to time. So we like to call it epic salvage because it's an epic item and we just salvage it. For the most part, it doesn't have any use and it's account bound. I'm being attacked in the back. By what? By an archer. Okay. Well, that was a little weird. I think everybody else is in front of me. Very strange dynamic with having the tank in the back. So, moving through this area very quickly. They already took care of the ambush that was right here. Then the harder section. Oh man, let me make this hard to get. Okay, I took the defense. Alright, so these guys are a little bit trickier when... Oh, wow. Yep, I just took about 40,000 damage. For anybody who doesn't have a whole lot of health, this is quite a bit. Alright, still moving through though. Nothing really too notable as of yet. We're skipping those few enemies as always to follow this trail. Again, it's not really much of a shortcut, it's just what the game suggests. And since it doesn't suggest that we go that way, and it's not the quickest route, so why should we take it? These people in their wheels are pissing me off. So, I don't particularly like the Wheel of Elements, and usually when I do get the bonuses from that, they tend to be the ones I don't want. And as you can see, no enemies pop through those windows like in the normal version. So, some subtle differences that you do notice. So we're getting closer and closer to the end of the dungeon. As you can kind of see the shadows off to the right. It's always fascinating that they did that with the design, I'm not gonna lie. Quite a few enemies here and there. Might as well pick that up and keep moving. Alright. Oops. So, a few more spots here and there. I don't have Relentless Avenger on, so I can't just simply throw all the enemies off the edge. How I wish I could. Hit the lever. Alright, so this is the lead up basically to the final boss. I know we make it look really easy, but these enemies hit like a fucking a truck, okay? They hurt so bad. I saw a message that might pertain to me, I'm not sure. Nope, not me. Okay. So, first things first, you will notice that I take the same direction. Did I take somebody's target? Okay, so, we're starting off... really? Kind of strong. I imagine that she's about to transform. Yep. Okay. First things first I do whenever she transforms, I back up a lot. Trying to lure her towards me. Because I want her to be closer to this. Alright, so the more that I can do that, the better. So the objective there was when she's transformed, she's pretty much invincible, but whenever a red wolf comes by, you can destroy or kill the red wolf and it will hurt her and depower her. Alright, so we managed to beat her very nicely and profusely. And I got some epic salvage. Yay! Okay, so that is the difference. She will repeatedly transform back and forth, and you'll have to defeat the red wolf each time that she does it. It is a little tricky to do that, but it's a cycle unless you have a really powerful DPS and a pretty good tank. So we have a decent party. That's why we were able to do that so successfully. But I hope this video reached everyone that it needed to for some good strategies for actually dealing with her. If you feel a little bit overwhelmed by the, the ads in the final battle, just try to take them out as quickly as possible. Having good, powerful DPS really helps. The higher the better, obviously, but sometimes it doesn't always work that way. So I'm going to actually leave my queue because I don't want them to accidentally queue me again. Some key notes when dealing with that DPS is they like to follow you around pretty much instantaneously, and the boss likes to chase you down and attack you. So you kind of have to make sure your tank is really doing their job, keeping her busy, while the DPS can take down the ads as quickly as possible. Because those ads get really out of control really quickly. You need to be able to control that. All the while, keep an eye out for the red wolf. Let the tank deal with the boss, and if the red wolf is near, have them attack the red wolf, while also attacking the boss. If the tank is not powerful enough to do both, just have them focus on keeping the boss away from the party, because the moment that the party has that issue, then the party will wipe. So you're gonna have to keep on top of that. That's the biggest problem in that dungeon. The boss is definitely the hardest part, especially there at the end, uh, where you're like, oh yeah, they only have like a bar left, and you only have like a tank and maybe one DPS that could do anything. So it's a little tricky. Gotta keep focused. It's one of the hardest dungeons in the game to really overcome. I wasn't able to pass it very effectively until I was an item level of like 3,500. Okay, that is 1,500 times, or 1,500 higher than what is required. That is almost, well, that is more than 50% higher than what it is. Okay, what is required. You have to go above and beyond to take it down. So, just a heads up, it is one of the hardest dungeons in the game because of that boss battle. Okay? Hopefully this was a very informative video, and that battle doesn't discourage you too much. Um, if you need help, just ask. Ask somebody. You know, ask anybody that you saw me running it with. Usually they'll probably give in, especially that guy named Ty. Okay, um, because he's constantly running it. I think he's trying to get his bloodstained shirt, and he's just having too much difficulty getting it. So he runs it quite often. You know, and if you are an individual who saw that and was very impressed and would like to run with people like our group, you could always request to be part of our guild, which is the RNG Screwed Me. Okay, the RNG Screwed Me is an interesting guild. If you're curious about it, I'll put a little bit of a note in the description uh, of who you should contact to try to join. I'll also put up a recruiting video at another time. Hopefully that will help get some people interested in joining this guild. It's part of one of the better alliances in the game, so hopefully that doesn't discourage you too much, but that's how we roll. Alright, so hopefully this video is great. Check out my other videos.